Sophie, and I'm back with another Public Lands 101 video. Over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be covering the movement to transfer control of public lands to the states. This is one of the biggest threats to outdoor recreationists today, but before we get into why that is, we're going to dive into the roots of this movement and a little thing called the Sagebrush Rebellion. As we covered in our public lands history video, our public lands have transitioned through a few different phases of management under the federal government. To sum it all up, after purchasing and taking over land that would become the United States, the federal government attempted to give much of it away before eventually deciding to hold it in trust for the public and manage these resources for the benefit of the American people. In 1976, the federal government made this decision official through the Federal Land Policy and Management Act. This law, also known as FLPMA, set the framework for much of our public land management system today, everything from land sales to land use planning and public hearings. It effectively ended homesteading and reinforced that the Bureau of Land Management had to manage multiple uses on our public lands in a way that sustainably serves the national interest. This law followed several other regulations, including the Wilderness Act and the Endangered Species Act, and because of this, it was seen as the last straw for some. States' rights advocacy groups, ranchers, and Western politicians, from county commissioners to U.S. congressmen, all took issue with this act. It fueled a new resistance to federal land management. Since this movement grew out of the West and much of the land out here is sagebrush steppe, the supporters adopted the name Sagebrush Rebellion. While the Sagebrush Rebellion has popped up in a few waves throughout history, make no mistake, the goal of this movement is and always has been state takeover of public lands. In this first wave, this stemmed from the belief that under FLPMA, states had lost control over the use of these lands, when in fact, FLPMA had actually passed several provisions to require consultation with state and local governments, as well as public involvement in land planning. The first wave of the Sagebrush Rebellion was a battle fought primarily in state legislatures, where several states introduced bills calling for the transfer of public lands. In Nevada, they actually enacted two statutes, one declaring all public lands in Nevada property of the state and subject to their control, and another giving the state authority to sell, lease, and dispose of public lands. Though these laws are unenforceable because they contradict federal law, several states would pass similar statutes throughout this period. There were a few physical skirmishes early on as well. Grand County, Utah commissioners led a group of protesters in bulldozing a road into a proposed wilderness study area, opposing what they saw as a BLM land grab. These physical clashes have only intensified through the years, culminating in the full-blown armed militia takeover of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge in 2016. But to hear more about that, you'll have to stay tuned to next week's video, where we'll cover the second and third waves of the Sagebrush Rebellion from the 1990s to today.